If you've ever listened to Alan Watts or Lao-Tzu, you know they were all about letting things flow, just like that river. They weren't fans of forcing life to go our way. Instead, they taught us to move with life, to be like water. Their wisdom helps us chill out and enjoy the ride a bit more.
There is a principle called Wu Wei. Wu means none or not, no, negation. Wei has a combination of meanings. It can mean action, making, but the best translation I have found for it is forcing. And so Wu Wei is the principle of not forcing in anything that you do.
Lao-Tzu, the Chinese philosopher who wrote the Tao Te Ching, emphasizes this idea through going with the flow, or as he called it, Wu Wei. Wu Wei means non-doing or effortless action. It sounds paradoxical, right? How can you act without effort? Isn't action supposed to take action? Wu Wei doesn't mean doing nothing, it's about not forcing things. It's about teaching in a natural, unforced way, in harmony with the natural flow of life. Lao-Tzu teaches that when you're in tune with the Tao, the natural way of the universe, things happen effortlessly. It's not about waiting for things to come to you, it's about trusting that life has its own pace. When we're aligned with that pace, life feels much better.
For as Shakespeare knew perfectly well, there is a tide in the affairs of men which taken at its flood leads on to fortune. And so Wu Wei is based on knowledge of the tide, the drift of things. Get with it.
Alan Watts spent a lot of time discussing Eastern wisdom in a relatable manner. He often pointed out that most of our suffering comes from forcing things. He used a great metaphor. Life is like dancing. When you dance, you're not trying to get somewhere. You dance to enjoy the movement. The moment you turn dancing into a goal-oriented activity, it stops being fun. You get so caught up in reaching the end or achieving a perfect style that you miss the essence of dancing itself. Life reflects this idea. It's not a race or a puzzle to solve. The more you try to force things, the more tension and frustration you create. We live in a world that encourages hustle, pushing harder, and achieving more. Yet Watts and Lao-Tzu remind us that wisdom often comes from easing off the throttle. It's in those moments when we stop trying to control everything that we find what we're searching for. Whether it's love, success, joy, happiness, you can't force these things. They come when you stop grasping at them so desperately. Now let's address a common concern. Letting go of control can feel unsettling. Many of us are wired to believe that if we release our grip, everything will fall apart. Planning and striving have become second nature, so letting things unfold naturally can seem reckless or even lazy. However, Watts teaches that control is essentially an illusion. While we can influence small aspects of life, like choosing what to eat for dinner, the bigger picture is often beyond our grasp. You can't dictate how others will act, control the weather, or even fully command your thoughts. Trying to tightly hold on to everything can be exhausting and often ineffective. Lao-Tzu expresses this in the Tao Te Ching, saying, "By letting things go, all things are done." This isn't an invitation to be passive. Rather, it's a reminder to recognize when to stop resisting the natural flow of life. Think back to moments when you were desperately trying to be happy or forcing yourself to make money. Isn't it often during these times that you felt the least fulfilled or even earned the least? This illustrates what happens when we stop forcing things. Letting go invites peace and creates space for life to unfold naturally. If you're like most people, the idea of letting go probably makes you anxious. What if things don't turn out the way you want? What if everything falls apart? Both Watts and Lao-Tzu talk about trusting the process of life. Trusting doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. It means you do your best and then release the grip on the outcome. You trust that life knows what it's doing, even when it seems chaotic or uncertain. When we're constantly worrying about the future or regretting the past, we're not living in the moment. After all, the only moment you have is now. Stop stressing about how things should be and start accepting things as they are. And funny enough, that's when things start to flow more easily. You're not fighting reality anymore, you're living it. As Watts said, this is it. Right now, this moment, this breath. Life isn't happening somewhere else, it's happening here. And the more you tune into that, the less you feel the need to force things. You can just be.
Now, please don't get agitated that this is an anti-intellectual point of view, that this is undermining the value of logic and reason and so on. That we'll bring all that back later when we need it. But just for the time being, let's simplify. Close your eyes. Listen. What do you really and truly, honestly, hear?